This is Jamie Livingston, and you're watching the TV Writer Podcast.
Hosted by Gray Jones, the TV Writer Podcast is brought to you by Script Magazine and ScriptMag.com, the leading source for script writing information in print and on the web. My name's Gray Jones, and I want to welcome you to the TV Writer Podcast, partner of Script Magazine, episode 68. Well, today I'm so excited because we have a number of firsts happening, and one of them is that this is the first time we've had somebody on 3 podcast episodes. Technically 2 interviews, but 3 episodes. We want to welcome back Jamie Livingston, who is a novelist and screenwriter. She is one of the co-founders of Script Chat and also of the TV Writer Chat with myself, Zach Sanford, and Viviana. Our newest team member is Sarah Newman among the moderators. And these are weekly chat groups that happen on Sunday evenings. We're going to talk all about them. But another first, and something that we're going to really be talking about today, is that the TV Writer Chat is running a free pilot writing program. It actually kicked off last Sunday, but you can get on board if you join up with us on this Sunday night. Make sure to go to tvwriterchat.com for the details. There's a schedule, there's a blurb about it, and there's also a newsletter to sign up for. Please do sign up for the newsletter. You can see the link right on the site there. So this is going to be a very, very exciting interview. Going to get right to it. It's a very long interview, but there's lots of details there about the chats, about Jamie, about the pilot program that you're going to want to know. This, of course, is the TV Writer Podcast, and there have been tons of interviews with writers, and you can find them at tvwriterpodcast.com. In particular, you'll see a post there that I did about the new year. Happy New Year. Now what? And I urge you to read that post. One of the things that's on there is a number of goal-setting resources and accountability resources that you can draw from. Also, I've done a cheat sheet with special podcast episodes that I've done in the past that are of particular interest to you as you're getting to know TV writing, as you're making goals for yourself. And also there's a cheat sheet with some of the best books that I've found. And for both of these sections, I tell you for which different category. So say, for instance, if you're interested in comedy writing, I tell you the podcasts where I interviewed comedy writers who were especially helpful. I talk about the books that relate to comedy writing. And so I urge you to go to that blog post. It's not just about the new year, but it's applicable for your TV writing, learning, and process in general. There's lots of other resources on the site, like links to free scripts. There's a TV Writer Twitter database on the site with almost 1,000 writers. It's going to be there soon. But right now, on to my interview with Jamie Livingston. Enjoy. This is Gray, and I'm here with novelist and screenwriter Jamie Livingston, who is also very well known for Script Chat and TV Writer Chat. How you doing, Jamie?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And actually, this is really interesting because you are the first person to be on 3 podcast episodes.
Am I really? I thought I've only been 2, but
well,
3.
we did one interview. Actually, it was a roundtable discussion, episode 19 and 20. I had to split it into 2 episodes because it was so long, and so you're actually the first person that people will have seen on 3 episodes.
Oh, I'm a rock star.
Very, very cool. Well, and actually, I'm really, really excited today because I think people are going to get a ton out of this interview, and in particular because there's a lot of people who kind of ease their way into the Twitter chats over a long period of time. They lurk for a while, they observe for a while, and then they kind of very delicately start peppering in some comments before they get to be full-fledged chatters. There's been a lot of people that have been really, really interested in the TV Writer Chat pilot program that have just launched in. And so I think this will be helpful for people to understand not only about the pilot program, but a little bit about the chats and how they work.
Exactly. And I think if you're not a veteran of the chats, the one we had on Sunday night, I've been doing these for 4 years, and even I was having trouble keeping up. So I can understand if they were first time people on the chat, they were probably really lost.
Yeah. Yeah, and you did just produce your first short film, No One Knows, and I saw the trailer. The trailer looks awesome on YouTube, just released. And
Thank you. They did a really nice job.
Yep. So we will talk about that as well. So we do have a few things to talk about. Mainly, those are the things that I wanted to discuss: the No One Knows film, chatting, and the pilot writing program. So, which would you like to talk about first?
I'm going to leave it up to you.
Okay. Well, why don't we talk about the chats? The chats, I think, are really, really cool, and that's actually. I'm trying to think how we first got connected. I think you probably saw the podcast first, and then you reached out on Twitter.
I think so. Gosh, it's been so long. Hasn't it been almost 4 years?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was through Script Magazine.
Yeah, through Script Magazine.
Joshua Stecker and Script Magazine.
Right. And so by that point, you already had Script Chat in full swing. But why don't we back up a little bit and tell me about when Script Chat was formed, and you were one of the co-founders of that. What were you thinking at that point? Why did you want to start that? And what benefit is one of these Twitter chat groups?
Well, it started with, I think it was Right Chat. And Jeannie Bowerman had invited Zach Sanford and I to participate in Right Chat. And we went on there, and it was a great turnout. But we realized as screenwriters, it just was way out of our realm and not really something that worked for us. And at the end of the chat, I already knew Zach. And so Zach and I were talking, let's do something that's specific to screenwriters. And then Zach brought Jeannie in, and the three of us got it started. And originally, we brought in Kim Garland and Mina from Europe, and Mina is no longer part of the European chat anymore, but we were the original, as Jeannie likes to put it, tree fort. And never in a million years, Jeannie had a vision, and never in a million years would we have believed that Script Chat would have come as far as it's come and reached so many people, and I mean people worldwide. It's been phenomenal.
Well, it was interesting actually because and you do we should clarify that Script Chat does actually talk about TV writing as well. Just this last Sunday, I happened to be watching. Actually, I was on Facebook, and Jen Grisanti, she links her Facebook and her Twitter, and I saw on Facebook that all of a sudden she was starting to talk about TV writing a lot, and so I think, oh, what's this all about? And she was on the Euro chat. The Euro Script Chat in Sunday afternoon talking about TV pilot writing. And so I quickly logged on. I don't get on Script Chat very much, but it was really neat, and it was tons of people from all over the world. Like people in the US and Canada were on there, as well as people in other countries all at the same time.
Yeah, the evening chat sticks pretty much to features, but there is no TV writer chat for the European version of Script Chat. And I thought Jen being their guest was phenomenal because, it's not just US writers that want to write TV. And that was awesome. I was so glad to see Jen on there. I just wish I could have made it to the chat. I couldn't make it.
Yeah, well, actually, it was a really good one. And she, of course, has tons of great insight about pilots, and especially what sells, because she's been on the selling end of it and the buying end of it, so to speak. But so back to Script Chat. So at first it started out with a few people, and then it burgeoned out to being tons and tons of people. But tell me about why somebody would want to log in on a Sunday night to be a part of something like that.
Well, you can use the Script Chat hashtag all day long, and people do. And that's kind of where it's gained most of its following. If people want to post anything about screenwriting, feature screenwriting, a lot of times with the TV writer chat hashtag, I'll also use Script Chat because it's been around longer. But for 1 hour on Sunday nights, we discuss a specific topic. And the people who come in to visit and chat are welcome to discuss anything they want about that topic. Sometimes we tend to get a little off topic, and whoever's moderating, usually Jeannie or me, have to bring everybody back to the subject. But if you can just for 1 hour concentrate on one topic and learn something from people who are already writing, who've been produced, it's a 1 hour education that you can't pay for.
Yep, very, very much so. I remember when I was learning screenwriting in the early 90s, There was nothing, like nothing. You couldn't pick up a phone and call somebody. You just couldn't get in touch with anybody. So you'd get a book off the shelf, and that was pretty much the extent of it. The fact that you can interface with people like this is, I mean, tremendous, tremendous, tremendous value. But so why don't we break that down a little bit? Because I think for us, we've been doing it for a while. For somebody coming in, we might glance pretty quickly through these things. So if somebody's just on Twitter with a Twitter client, whether it be on the webpage or a separate client on their phone or whatever, you can just include the hashtag script chat or TV writer chat, and you're targeting anybody who happens to already be watching that. And so in your Twitter client, especially TweetDeck is excellent for this, because you can set up a whole column and just tell it, I want this hashtag in this column, and it'll aggregate all of these together. So at any point in time, you can be watching that column to see anything that anybody's tweeting about that. And then Sunday night, and even some of our guests get confused about this. That's not generally the way we do the chats, because there's actually a web interface that you can go to where it automatically enters that for you. And so you're free to just type what you want. And so at scriptchat.com or tvwriterchat.com, there's how to chat, and people can access the web client that way. And it's something you do have to log into. Sometimes people are afraid about authorizing this application. Don't worry, it's great. So you log into there, and then anything you type, you don't have to enter that hashtag, and it automatically goes to the people who are in that sort of chat room.
Right. What you do is you log into www.tweetchat.com, and at the very top, it's going to ask you to enter a hashtag. And if it was TV Writer Chat, you would put in TV Writer Chat and enter, and then it will give you everything that has the TV Writer Chat hashtag on it. But if you are typing from that web page, you don't have to add the hashtag. It automatically adds it for you. And then it shows you at the bottom of the page, scrolling down, the entire conversation.
And so the nitty-gritty about the chats, and people can get the topics on each of the websites. Scriptchat.com and tvwriterchat.com have a list of upcoming topics, and every week there's going to be one person who's a moderator. And then so even though all week long you're going to be posting with script chat as a hashtag, during that time, which is from 5 to 6 Pacific Standard Time for script chat.
Script chat is 5 to 6 Pacific, and TV Writer Chat is 6:30 to 7:30 Pacific.
Okay. And so during that time, that's focused on one topic, and that's what people got a little confused about on Sunday. And by the way, those times were Sunday nights. But so basically, the idea when somebody does come on a Sunday, we try to restrict our messages to the one topic that is at hand, and make sure that our questions and feedback are related to that. But tell me a little bit more about what happens in the chats and what people might need to know to make sure that they're done the best way possible.
You mean during the 1 hour chats?
Yeah, during the 1 hour chats.
Okay. I think, some of them tend to move really, really quickly. And you post, if we have a guest, or as I happen to be the moderator and guest last week, the guest answers the questions as they come along. Most of the time we try to put, a cue in front of it if it's a question, so the moderator or the guest can point them out. But if the chat is moving as fast as it was on Sunday, things are going to get missed. If you put in a question, and you happen to be in the chat and you put in a question and it doesn't get answered, don't hesitate to put the question back in again, because it probably got missed. I know that happened a lot. And when we've had guests in the past, they've said, look, if I missed something, ask me later. I'd be more than happy to answer it for you. But you just type in your questions. When you respond to someone, there's a little, the little back hook on the right-hand side of the screen, and you can respond to someone if you see something. If you already know how to work Twitter, you know how to retweet, and you know how to respond to someone, and you're able to do that right in the tweet chat room. But it's you can slow it down, you can scroll through. It's kind of takes the only way I can really tell you is it takes practice. And keeping and going to the chats and seeing how it works. And I know usually after 1 or 2 chats people have it down, they totally get it. And one thing very important, if your Twitter account is changed, is protected. You have to unprotect your Twitter account if you want to ask questions or be a part of a chat.
Oh, good to know.
Chats are public. If you have your timeline private, you will not be able to participate. You might be able to watch, but you will not be able to participate in a chat. So if you want to go onto a chat, just take your profile public for that 1 hour if you want to participate. Or if you don't, then find yourself or make yourself another Twitter account that is just for attending the chats, that is not private, because you can watch, but you can't participate.
Right.
And then and the best thing about script chat and TV writer chat is when we're done, usually within an hour, if the report website is working, we have transcript posted on the website. So anything you missed, you can scroll back through and you can read it. And it's short sentences, so it's really easy to scroll back through and read an entire hour's worth of chat fairly quickly.
Yep. And I would mention one thing, because different people have different things. Like, say, for instance, Zach Sanford does have a separate account that he uses just for the chats. That can actually accomplish more than one thing, because you may have people who follow you on Twitter who are not writers, and all of a sudden they're going to see all your tweets for an hour about the writing. It saves them seeing this flood of tweets if you have a separate address just for that. But I would mention that there are some disadvantages to that, because say, for instance, what I will do, I will just say a warning before the chat starts. Say, for the next hour there's going to be some extra tweets. Please forgive me. But the advantage of using my own address is that during the chat, you kind of interface with people, and they say, "Oh, this is a guy I'd like to interface with aside from the chat." And so you'll tend to get people following you from the chats if they know your correct address. So if you do have a separate address, you might also want to mention at some point, by the way, this is my actual handle, if you ever want to connect off the chat.
Zach does that every time he uses the Zach Sanford too. He lets everybody know that he's actually Zach Sanford, but I understand where he's coming from. And I have to say, I'm sure people hated me Sunday night. But after I post the transcript, a lot of the times I'll go back through and delete all of those tweets, because it does tend to overwhelm my Twitter feed. But I didn't for Sunday nights, because I thought maybe some people would want to go back through and see some of the answers without having to go through the entire transcript to get the answers. But it's a process, and Sunday night was one of those crazy chats. We've had a few of those with when we get produced writers. I mean, I don't, these people who are new to TV writer chat, they're going to have to go back through the transcripts. We've had the most incredible writers, Mike Alber, who you've interviewed, Bob DeRosa, who writes for White Collar. He is also the writer of the blockbuster film Killers. Yep. And you've interviewed him. He is wonderful. Leonard Chang did a special, not on Sunday night, but did a special interview with us, and he writes for my absolute all-time favorite show, Justified. Well, actually, maybe that's not true, because Rick from Suits, which is one of my other all-time favorite shows, and I think you're interviewing him this week, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, he's awesome. Anyway, we've had some great TV writers. Jen Grisanti has been a guest for us. She is phenomenal. I would love to get Pilar Alessandra on there. But it's been a great chat. There's been some great information. And I think this year, instead of rehashing all of that information, I wanted to try something different. And that something different is the pilot program.
Yes. Okay. Well, this is the perfect spot. Let's talk about that. You recently did a pilot program at UCLA, and you learned some things, and you thought that there were some things that we could translate for for this chat experience. But why do you think those things are? Like it's obviously different when you have an instructor and you have a group like the UCLA thing. It is a very structured environment. How can we translate to the weekly 1 hour Sunday night TV writer chat?
Okay, the one thing I wanted to explain is that the UCLA program has an instructor, and that and this is what you're actually paying for, and you're hoping in the meantime to network with other writers. And the instructor, Bill Taub, oh my gosh, phenomenal! I can't say enough about him. His feedback was incredible, but I expected more of a community. And I didn't find that happening in the class. I thought there should be more out of class interaction. And I think people's lives just get in the way. And I had invited the people from that class to participate in the TV writer chat, but nobody participated outside of the class at all.
No.
Yeah, and I was really bummed about that because seriously, just for the instructor alone, I would take the class again. Bill was phenomenal. He didn't hold back. He wasn't afraid to hurt your feelings with feedback. It's, this isn't, just so people understand, this is not a hobby. This is a business, and you're going to have to grow thick skin. And if you can't take, slight feedback from somebody, you're never going to be able to make it, because nobody in this, they're almost paid to say no. So you've got to give them a reason to say yes. And so when someone gives you, and you might think it's harsh feedback, but I'm telling you, I would rather have honest feedback and someone saying, really? Than someone being a yes person. Oh yeah, move ahead with this. This is a great idea. I had thrown 3 ideas out because this is how to get to the program we're doing. What I learned is there is a lot you have to do before you ever type fade in. Right. And I had always had this idea it'll come along organically, and it doesn't come along organically. And this class made me realize that. I thought 10 weeks to write a pilot. Well, it ended up being 12 weeks because of Hurricane Sandy and the holidays, and the teacher was nice enough to expand it. But what I learned the most was you throw ideas out there. He just shredded my ideas. He's like, and he was right, because those ideas weren't hashed out. I thought I had, and I knew what I was saying in my head, but the ideas didn't come across well. And then there was a DEA idea that I came up with, and he liked it. And I was like, okay, so now where do I go with this? And he made me dig deep. And that is what this pilot program is about. It's digging deep. We don't have an instructor who's giving feedback, but we do have every week for an hour. And this is the other thing I want to reiterate is this isn't just for an hour on Sundays. If you have questions during the week while you're working on stuff, go on Facebook. Well, you can go on Facebook too, but go on Twitter, use the hashtag, ask the question. Someone will be on there eventually and answer it for you during the week. And if they don't have an answer, maybe they can find someone who does. But that was the thing I felt like was missing, was the sense of community that I was hoping to get. Actually, out of all of that, I'm only still in communication with one of those writers from the UCLA program.
Interesting. Actually, if we could just stop there for a second.
Sure.
Oh, and one thing, if you could just move your mic down a little bit, we're getting a bit of pop.
Is that better?
Split the difference. Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay.
Okay.
And in my experience with, and obviously through the podcast, I deal with a lot of people who are wanting to break into the industry, and there's this mentality that I feel from a lot of people that when they take a program like that it's going to be like school was, and so you just attend the classes, and at the end you get a diploma that gets you a job, and that couldn't be that's the absolute furthest from the truth. And even with these very esteemed and highly coveted fellowships that are out there, I know I interviewed Keto Shimizu, episode 10, I think, or somewhere around there of the podcast. She did, I think it was the NBC Writers on the Verge program. Somebody's going to watch the podcast and correct me, but she did one of these great fellowships, and her experience with that was the fellowship didn't get her a job.
Keon Kim can tell you the same thing.
Yeah.
That, he did both, Nickelodeon and Writers on the Verge. And no, they don't get you a job.
Yep. And what Keto Shimizu did, as an example, is she said to the other writers who were taking that program at the same time, when the program ended, this is great. Let's keep getting together. And so she initiated to build that community. And then they continued to meet. They had a writers group after the program. And it was through that she got her first staff job. I think it was on the Cape. And I think people have to realize that the program is maybe just the catalyst, or it's a place that you have an opportunity to network with other writers, but you've got to initiate and make that happen, just as you tried to do with this group. And also things like the TV Writer Chat and this pilot program are great for that other component, that writing group component, the regular getting together, the regular interfacing with people. And that, if anything, I think is the more powerful thing to get somebody in a position to be able to work in the industry.
Absolutely. The writing is just the beginning. It starts with the writing, and it starts with having a kick-ass pilot or a spec script. You might as well have both, because it's going to change back eventually. But that's just the beginning. The networking and the meeting people, that's where it's all at. It's not the actual writing class. It's not the actual doing the homework, just like, and that's another thing, how many years of school did you go through to get your job? And now you think you're going to write 6 months worth of writing and you're going to get a job? Well, maybe you will. Maybe you will be one of those very lucky few. But most overnight successes took years to get there. And the one thing I wanted to mention is we are going to have a guest towards the end of this program. And it is for the Great American Pitch Fest. And if you do nothing else, if you go to a pitch fest and you don't pitch, go for the classes and the networking. I am lucky enough that I actually sit at a producer's table when I go. But go out there and meet people, talk to people, but don't sell yourself when you go. Go just with the idea of meeting other people who are interested in the same thing you're interested in. And you're going to be in LA, so you might as well make connections while you're there. Sell yourself, not that you are a writer, but sell yourself as yourself. And we're actually going to have a guest at the end of this program who's going to talk about the networking part of learning. And I know, the other night people were asking, I have a pilot made, but I don't know how to get it noticed, or who to get it in, how to get it in somebody's hands. That's something we're going to discuss down the road, but that's going to be after everybody's been through the program. And that's, networking is the hardest part of anything, whether you're a novelist or a screenwriter. Getting your name out there and getting your work noticed is the hardest part of anything, but you've got to get it written first. And how many people do you know who have an idea for a TV show, have an idea for a screenplay, have started a screenplay but never finished it? And the reason I chose to do 6 months, it's actually a little over 5 months, but the reason I chose the longer venue instead of the short 10 weeks is I found 10 weeks overwhelming.
Wow.
10 weeks to do this class, especially if you're right. For me, it just happened to be during a bad time of year for me, but life gets in the way. And now you're 3 weeks behind and you don't want to play catch up.
Right.
Well, if you have the extra time in between, then you're not going to be behind. And I know it's a long time, but if it's your first pilot that you're ever writing, this is a good length of time to get it written in. And then in the future, you'll know what it entails, what the details are, and you'll be able to write another one on your own. My biggest thing that I think is hilarious, and it's not hilarious, it's kind of scary, but is most people who want to write a sitcom don't even know that there's single cam and multicam, and they're written differently.
Wow.
Yeah, I was floored, because every time I talk about writing a sitcom, or someone talks to me about it, I'm like, oh, really? Do you want to do single cam or multicam? And that deer in the headlights look.
Oh my goodness.
They're like, well, what's the difference? And then someone will say, well, how many pages is a sitcom?
Yeah.
Well, what are you writing? Single cam or multicam? Yeah.
Well, that betrays a couple of things. It betrays, number one, the idea, and screenwriters especially have this. Usually it's less in TV writing, but there's this idea that because I've read books before, I can be a screenwriter. That I speak English, I know the language, I know words, I can write on a page, so therefore I can just sit down at the computer and I can write something. Novelists, I was really inspired. I read, boy, do I have it right here? Stephen King's On Writing recently. And
Best book ever.
it's an amazing book, but I was shocked at how many books he still reads, novels of other writers. Like he read the whole Harry Potter series. Stephen King, Stephen King. He's reading the same book that my 9-year-old is reading. Like if we want to write, we should be avid readers of the medium that we're writing. And if somebody had read a bunch of comedies, they would clue into the fact that, oh, wait a second, these look different.
Absolutely. And not only that, but they're written differently.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely a setup payoff in the multicam, and I'm sure you could have watched every episode of every season of 2.5 Men,
mm-hmm.
and not realized that it was a setup payoff until you started looking at the looking or listening to the dialogue and looking at what was in front of you. And then, a single cam, say Modern Family, it's a vignette. It's a small story in a bigger part of these people's lives. They're written completely differently. They're actually formatted completely differently. And that's the one thing that I think, even people who were in the UCLA class didn't know that.
Wow.
And I think that this is what we need to show people, the business end, teach them how to get to where they're going before they sit down and write something and waste their time.
Exactly. Yeah.
It is. It's a waste of time. If you don't know what you're doing, thank God you're not wasting paper, but you are wasting time. And you need to educate yourself not only about the craft, but about the business, and then sit down and write. And I know a lot of these people were saying, well, I've already gotten this far. Okay, but did you start from the beginning and decide whether you were going to do a sitcom or a drama? Did you think out your characters? We had to do character profiles. And the things that I learned were all of these little things that when I finally sat down to write my 1-hour drama, okay, it's a drama with a little bit of, it's a little bit light in some areas, but it's a drama.
Yeah.
When I finally sat down to write it, I have never written anything so quickly in my life. The words just poured out. And obviously, we'll have to discuss the vomit draft, but it was the vomit draft, and I turned it into the instructor, and the feedback I got was phenomenal. It's the kind of feedback that, yes, you pay to get, and I paid for it, but I got feedback along the way. And I think this is what people need, and why we're doing the extra time in between each section of the course that we're offering. So let's. Do you mind if I go through the schedule and talk about it, or what do you want to do next? Just on that
point, and then we'll get to that. I think on that point, people have to understand when they're doing this or the UCLA program or any other program, you're writing a TV show or a movie. Either way, one season of a TV show is $60 million, roughly $60 or $70 million, depending on the show. One movie to produce now is about $60 or $70 million budget on average. There are some that are much higher, some that are lower. But I would not go to build a $60 million house without a blueprint.
Exactly.
I wouldn't go to build a $60 million house when I'd never learned how to use the equipment that I was going to build it with, without doing some research, and yet it just doesn't compute the fact that somebody wouldn't have read a single book on TV writing and then try to sit down and write something that they're going to sell as something that's worth putting $60 million into.
Well, let me ask you this, along the same lines. Would you pay an architect who didn't go to school to design your home?
No.
And it's the same thing, writers are architects, and if you need to build something with a solid foundation, you need to know how to build that solid foundation. And I agree with you. There's some books that, were kind of a waste of time for me to read, but I can say when it comes to TV writing books, I haven't found any yet that have been a waste of time. I have found that I thought this is the be all end all. This is the greatest TV writing book I've ever read. And then I read another one and I'm like, no, this is the greatest one I've ever read. There are some really, really good books. I can throw some names out there.
Sure. TV Writer's Workbook.
Yeah. The TV Writer's Workbook, Ellen Sandler, Pamela Douglas, if you're writing a drama, she does, she writes a fantastic book on writing the TV drama. Some of the samples might be a little bit dated, unless there's an updated version, but that's another book I highly recommend. Your podcasts, the TV Writer podcast, if you want an education, download them to your whatever you listen to, your iPod, whatever, and listen, because there are so many nuggets in there. And working TV writers, producers are the most generous people you can possibly imagine. Yeah. So take advantage of that and learn. And I know you've multiple times advocated books to read. Take the time, read the books, read them. And my suggestion, read them cover to cover, then go back and glean the nuggets from those books. But read them cover to cover without trying to do anything, and then go back and read it for the information that it offers. And you will come away with an education that is worth a full semester of school.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, it's about being a professional. And I just interviewed someone recently who told me that, he's been a very successful TV writer for a number of years, and he still goes to seminars. He still goes to classes on TV writing. He still reads books. And so it's part of the lifestyle of a professional to keep up in your craft. Stephen King, he's an example where he's like, Stephen King, come on, like he's been writing for 50 years, like, oh my goodness, and yet he still is researching. An analogy to that is Tiger Woods. Yeah. Tiger Woods
has a coach.
Yeah.
And maybe people don't like Tiger, but Tiger Woods has a coach. He has someone outside of himself telling him the mistakes he's made. And look at him. He's one of the top professionals in his field. What makes you think that as a writer, you're any different? You need to keep reading, you need to keep writing, and you need to keep learning. And this program is set up for someone who's maybe written a pilot or, has not written anything, is brand new to it. And so for some people, it's going to go a little slow. Other people, it's going to be a perfect pace. But this is a start, not an end.
Yeah.
And I don't know what else to say, because I think I'm amazed at how many people started without knowing the direction that they're going to go.
Yeah. And so I would say, just as we're getting into the structure of the program, I would say, especially because it's a slightly slower pace, I would advise everyone to right now, you can go to tvwriterpodcast.com. Down on the sidebar on the right, there's links to free scripts available. Start reading scripts. A drama takes about an hour to read. A sitcom takes about a half hour to read. You could read 2 or 3 a week and get started to see the format, just see how they look on the page. Buy a book. I highly suggest the TV Writer's Workbook by Ellen Sandler for comedy or drama. Even just if you start with that, read that book and at least get familiar with, she has some great points about the structure of a television episode. And also she has some great points about when you are reading a script, what to look for in terms of the act outs and how things are structured. So this TV pilot writing program is not a replacement for those things. Those things will greatly help people's experience if you can at least get some fundamentals from those kinds of things, and then your writing will be better. So now let's talk about the structure of the program. How does it work?
Okay. And also along with that is, each week I'm going to try to send out a newsletter and post on the website kind of what I want to call homework to prepare you. Is if you're going to write a sitcom, you need to know the difference. You know, you need to know this is what, multicam looks like. This is what a single cam looks like. Drama, because I know we've talked a lot about sitcom dramas. Do I write 4 acts, 5 acts, 6 acts, 7 acts? What if I'm writing for cable? You know, if you're writing for cable, you're still writing acts. You're just not writing to a commercial break. And so there's these things that you need to know. And so definitely I am going to put up, well, I can also just, you know, have them go to the TV Writer podcast, because you definitely have, you're a one stop for everything you need to know about TV writing. But okay. So first of all, do you just want me to go through what each week is going to be, or do you want me to break down?
Well, first of all, if you haven't yet, go to the tvwriterchat.com website, and you have to go into the last post of 2012 to get the blurb, the intro to the program. And then there's a link on that where it takes you to the schedule. So we don't have to rehash things people can read on the page, but let's introduce sort of, say, for instance, some questions that came up were, how do you know that somebody's in the program? Do they have to tweet in the chat on Sunday night? Do you have to sign up for the newsletter? And then what are the expectations for the person who is signing up for this program?
Okay, so I did finally put a newsletter link on the website, so you can go to tvwriterchat.com and get the newsletter, and that will give you any updates, any changes in schedule, and there have been changes in the schedule. I realize nobody's going to want to chat on Super Bowl Sunday, and but there are, if you go to the website, there are going to be weeks that are highlighted, and they're highlighted in yellow. Those weeks, you must actively participate in the chat every one of those weeks to be eligible for what we have at the end of the program. Do you want me to talk about that first?
Yes.
And then, okay.
Yeah, sure.
So at the end of the program, 5 scripts will be chosen to be read, evaluated, and before the rewrite. So 5 scripts of someone who has participated in every chat will get notes for their rewrite. At the end of the rewrite section, we have a working manager. Her name is Jenny, and she's with High Street Management. She is going to read 1 sitcom and 1 drama.
Wow.
But you have to participate in every single one of the highlighted chats in order to be eligible for that. And the reason I say this is I don't think it's fair to someone who's participated in everything and, you know, been a part of it, been in there, been helping their writing partner, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then have someone come in who's been to 1 or 2 chats and then in the end wants to be eligible. I just don't think it's fair. So I want to make it fair to everybody. Just like in school, you know, you attend every class to get to the end to get your grade. And that's our incentive to keep people coming back and to keep people writing. And the whole program is more about accountability. There's I think pretty much every single one of the TV Writer Chat people have written at least 1 pilot, if not multiple. And so, you know, we've been there, we've done that. And it just, to have someone to bounce ideas off of, to brainstorm, that is what the whole point of the chats is about. Now, partnering. I was hoping that we would have enough turnout that everybody could be paired up with another writer. This does not mean you are writing your pilot with them. Right. They are writing their pilot. You are writing your pilot. But it's someone you can email. If you choose to, you can talk on the phone. It's totally up to what your partnership is. And you can bounce ideas off of each other in between the chats. So we'll pair up people who are writing sitcoms, and we'll pair up people who are writing dramas. And the sitcoms, of course, we'll have to split those into multicam and single cam. But it's somebody to, you know, maybe they're at the same level that you're at, and you just need someone to say, okay, what do you think of this character? And so that's what the partnership program is about. You're not writing the script with the person, you're writing your own script.
And who will pick the partners?
What we're going to do is next week, when everybody's made their decisions, we're going to have them tweet to TV Writer Chat, so the @TV Writer Chat, and whether they're doing it so with their name, sitcom, single, sitcom, multi, or drama, and then TV Writer Chat is going to pair those people up.
Okay. Cool.
Actually, it's going to be Sarah, but it's going to be to the TV Writer Chat account, so that, because it's kind of that way everybody's in one place and not trying to figure out, who Sarah is, who Jamie is. It's easier just to do it to TV Writer Chat.
Yeah. So, and to explain, that's not the hashtag TV Writer Chat. That's the actual TV Writer Chat entity. So TV Writer Chat.
Right, the Twitter account @TV Writer Chat, and we'll try to make that very clear. And then we will announce in the newsletter who is partnered up with who, and then we'll probably also announce it on Twitter and then also on the blog. And then we also do have a Facebook page. So that is facebook.com/TV Writer Chat.
Cool. Okay. So is there, like I said, people will see the schedule, and they'll also get more info as we go. But is there anything else you can think of that people need to know kind of right now? Like, what should people be doing right now? What should they expect right now? What are their expectations other than what we talked about?
I think that they need, the biggest thing is that they need to be patient. And I know a lot of these people want to jump right in, and I just want to explain to people that there is a method to this madness. If you don't know your story inside and out, if you aren't sleeping, eating, drinking, breathing with these characters, you're not ready to write. I know, some novelists sit down and they just start writing, some screenwriters do too, but I have not yet seen a script that is well written if those characters aren't alive in that person's head. And first of all, you have to have an idea. Okay. The big thing too is not every idea is a TV idea. And let's say it is a TV idea. It doesn't mean it's a good idea. Same with, there's, whether you're writing a feature or whether you're writing TV or whether you're writing a novel, not every idea is a good idea.
Well, and actually the interesting thing on that point is that there is such a thing as an art house film that's not a commercial film. There is no such thing as an art house television show. Every television show has to be commercial because the medium depends on finding an audience.
Absolutely. The only difference, and everything is commercial, absolutely. The only difference is if you are writing for a network, you are going to be writing PG, regardless. Even if you're writing, CSI. CSI is maybe PG-13. Busy Phillips was just saying that moving to TBS has been a fantastic thing for Cougar Town because now they can be more gritty. Because TBS is cable. If you're going to write for cable, you can swear. You can, it'll be edited, but in your, you'd be amazed. You probably wouldn't because you've probably read thousands, but I read these scripts and they're swearing in the title. And I'm like, just like the B in Apartment 23, that's the original title. If, the original title for, The New Girl was much more crude. But you can get away with that with cable. You can't get away with that if you're intending to write for the networks. And that's another thing that, we'll be discussing, what medium, what venue are you planning to write for? Because if you're writing for HBO, you can do a lot more than if you're writing for NBC or even FX. You're going to find grittier shows if you're wanting to write for cable. And this is my personal opinion. You can tell me what you think, Gray. Gear it towards cable. There are many, many, many more opportunities in cable than there are at the networks.
Well, the issue first of all, and I actually asked Jen Grisanti about this on Sunday. You don't ever write only toward the commercial aspect of things. You don't ever think, what will sell? Let me reverse engineer that and try to figure out, because you're not going to come up with something creative. You always have to write to your passion. And say, for instance, if somebody's passion is to write sci-fi is probably going to air on either the Sci-Fi Network or one of the major networks. There are very few sci-fi shows that are running on cable. It's not that they don't exist, but that's an example where if you're writing to your passion and your passion is sci-fi, you have to be aware that you're not going to write an HBO sci-fi, because they just, in the sense that you have to have an awareness of where it might live, but you don't necessarily have to write to what they're already airing, because that doesn't make sense. They want to buy something new.
New that's exactly the same. Something new that's exactly the same. But that is where this is a business. And in a business, you don't go to sell cupcakes to Weight Watchers.
Right.
You need to know your networks. You need to know the business. You need to know, if you are writing just nitty gritty drama, you're probably going to be wanting to go to cable because, FX is nitty gritty. If you're writing something that's kind of nitty gritty, but it's got great characters, it's going to be USA Network.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to know what stations, what companies are buying what, and you've got to know where, this is another thing I think people need to understand too, is this is a writing sample.
Mm-hmm.
The chances of this pilot selling, you're going to win the lottery before you're probably going to sell this pilot. This pilot is a writing sample.
Mm-hmm.
This writing sample is going to get you a job.
Yeah.
Hopefully. And we all wish we were Mike, and and sold how many pilots, but but his pilots also got him on what was the one that was on MTV? Sorry, Mike. Death Valley. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah.
Death Valley. It's the one that got him writing on the Nickelodeon show. His pilots, they may have sold, but they also got him jobs.
Right.
And I think people need to understand that if you're lucky, you're going to sell this. But seriously, you're showing people your chops. This is what I've got. And if you aren't writing this because you think it's going to get you a job and you're ready to move to LA, then you need to maybe think about a different path, because you can't live in Michigan and write for TV.
Yeah. You absolutely, TV, you have to think about where it's going to sell. And even if, and somebody could argue, well, this is just a writing sample, so I can just write whatever I want and it doesn't matter where it's going to sell because it's just a writing sample. Well, it's still a writing sample that you're able to write what can sell.
Exactly. That you know what people are looking for. You know how to build great characters, to how to build drama. That's another thing too that is very important, and it's one of the things that we're going to be working on is act outs. Mm. And I'd be willing to bet you most people do not know what an act out is. And so that's one of our weeks that we're going to be talking about story structure and building to your act outs. And if you can't build to an act out, that's something you really need to learn. And you've got to, if you write with passion and it shows in your writing, people are going to notice it.
Yeah.
And it's going to get you, it might get your pilot sold, but it'll give you a chance to get a job. And can I just make one more?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
One pilot is not a resume.
Right.
And every manager you talk to, maybe we'll be able to get Jenny on again and talk to just specifically about TV once again. Mm-hmm.
Her podcast interview, she goes into great detail about what kind of portfolio people need. I would highly suggest that people go back and watch Jenny Frankfurt's podcast interview. It was recently, just a couple months ago.
Oh yeah, and she's a gem when it comes to information. She's wonderful, but you have to have a resume. One pilot does not prove anything. And, and to tell you the truth, this is actually a long enough span that you could, if you're the type of person who can multitask, you could actually write 2 pilots during this program.
Yeah.
You could write the one that we actually talk about and discuss, and you can also write one on the side, because there's a lot of, lead time in here for people who write faster. I know Zach and I are going to work on one together, and then we're also doing individually, but we're going through the steps and starting from the beginning. And there's an accountability here. It is so, I can't even tell you how many projects get started that never get finished. But if you've got someone else right in there with you who's, in the trenches and going through the same roadblocks that you're going through, it makes it so much easier to get through it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And definitely writing speed is something that does need to be mentioned. This one will be 6 months. Real working writers write a lot faster than that. And I would suggest after doing this, the experience of this 6-month one, that people make a goal that they write the next one in 10 weeks and then write the next one in 5 weeks. And working writers, I know working writers who can do a pilot in 2 weeks. Now, of course, they don't have day jobs at the same time. They can do that all day long, but still, spread that out over 5 weeks. That's a lot shorter than 3, 4, 5, 6 months, or some people take literally a year or two to marinate their work. TV is not about marinating.
No, it's not. It's not like a feature where you have years to write it. Yeah. And the other thing, too, is people need to not beat themselves up. I was just reading a book called Talent is Overrated. And I think that's what it's called. And it talks about the mental capacity that people have. I think it was a pianist they were talking to, and he said, well, when I practice with my fingers, I can, I practice for hours and hours. I have to practice for hours and hours. But when I practice in my mind, I practice for about an hour and a half. I can accomplish the same thing. Remember, that's about all if you are really, really into what you're doing, whether you're writing, or whatever you're doing mentally, your mind can really only handle about an hour and a half at a time at that level of concentration. Remember to give, if you can't sit down and write for longer than that, don't beat yourself up. You have to work your mind into the longer sessions, and little short bursts are better than doing nothing at all.
Yeah. There was a great YouTube or video. I don't know if it was on YouTube, but I urge everybody to do a Google search for John Cleese creativity, and you might want to add the word Flemish. But he did a lecture at this creativity conference, and there's a 10-minute video where he talks about the creative process that I thought was just mind-blowing. It is very simple, but he talks about the reasons for our brain, why we need this time. Some of the things he mentioned were about how you have to have a start and an end time to your creative blocks, that you don't just have a start time and then go till whenever. You actually have an end time so that your brain knows, okay, well, this is the time that I'm going to produce, but I know that I can shut this off at a certain point and let it go back to the subconscious to work for tomorrow. And there's a lot of other great stuff in there, but absolutely, there's some mechanics to writing as well that people would do well to learn.
Yeah, and people who say, okay, and I have absolutely, I don't know how to put this nicely, no sympathy. I can't be nicer about it. I have no sympathy for people who say I don't have time. If you want to do it, you can find the time. I'm gonna use myself as an example, and anybody who knows me knows what my schedule is like. I own a restaurant where I work 55 hours a week. I own a jewelry business, and that can be anywhere from 20 to 40 hours a week. I write novels.
Yeah.
Last year I wrote 3 novels, 3 screenplays, and 2 pilots.
Yeah.
And I work an average of 90 hours a week, and I was able to fit time in to write. And if you work more hours than I work per week, then you have an excuse. And you, Gray, you're worse than me, But if you want it bad enough, you're gonna carve out the time. So if you say you don't have the time, then maybe you just don't want it bad enough.
Right. And sometimes it takes hard decisions to make the time. And sometimes, and I love Pilar and Alessandra has this coffee break screenwriter. Now, not that it should only be in the coffee breaks, but I think sometimes we don't realize where we can make the time. Most of us spend way too much time on Facebook and Twitter. They're very helpful resources.
Not me.
But there has to be times that you schedule for it to happen. Like, say, for instance, if I know, and you know, I'll be honest, my writing time is generally at 11:30 at night. That's my day. I got lots of other stuff going on. 2 kids and a grandson now, and busy day job, podcasting, all that kind of thing. It doesn't happen until 11:30, but I schedule it. I know that 11:30, my Twitter and email and Facebook are going off. My cell phone's off, and that's my time. Nothing else at that time.
Well, it is amazing if you know, we do the writing sprints. It is amazing if you say 30 minutes, concentrated writing, 1 hour, concentrated writing, no interruptions, close the door. I have a little thing that hangs on my door. It's just me and my husband, so it's not that big of a deal, but it says writer at work, and I close the door. And he knows not to interrupt me, not to ask me if I'm hungry. You know, that's it. It is amazing. I can get okay, I'm not going to, you know, this is called vomit draft here. This is just getting it on the page. But I can get, for a novel in an hour, I can get 10 pages written. If I am just in that world, completely absorbed, I can get 10 pages written in an hour. And then, of course, the next time I write, I'll go back over those 10 pages, you know, do what I need to do to fix them, and then I do another writing sprint. But, you know, if all you have is 15 minutes, imagine if you could get 2 to 3 pages written every 15 minutes that you sat down, even 1 page, it starts to add up. And if you did it, you know, say, well, as in Pilar's book, if you did it 3 times a day, look what you'd have at the end of the month. And by the way, I love Pilar's book. That the last feature that I wrote, I had it on my blog, but the last feature that I wrote, I said I was going to take a screenwriting book. Yeah. And I was going to follow it to the letter. And that was the book that I chose. I didn't tell anybody that, so this is my coming out here. I think the only person who knew that I used that book was Sarah. But and I have to say, it was the smoothest process for writing a feature that I have ever done. And so I really enjoyed that process. Little vignettes of sitting down for 10, 15 minutes, being absorbed in what I'm doing. And personally, that 10 minutes, it was great to get it on the page, but I always had to go back. And it took me another hour or 2 hours to get it, to expand it to where I really, really needed it. But it was a start. And anyway, go Pilar.
Yeah.
It's a great book.
Yeah. And it's funny how all these things just kind of bubble together, but between the John Cleese video, he talks about interruptions, how it's just terrible for our brain. I've now told my wife, if the house is burning down, then come get me. Anything else, don't. But between the interruptions and also the bit by bit, that's where I was going with this. With Stephen King, he I'm
going to interrupt you while you're thinking that thought. It's Stephen King's On Writing, and it doesn't matter what you write, read this book.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. That's what I was getting to. Sorry, I got off track there. Was that he said the reason he writes every day is all about one simple thing. It's because if he goes 2 days, he's lost the story in his head.
Absolutely.
It might only be 10 minutes every day, but if it is every day, the story lives in your head and stays there. And I've had this experience where once I start doing this every day, all of a sudden I'm thinking about it as I drive. I'm thinking about it as I'm trying to get to sleep. All of a sudden I'm thinking about the story, and it's the first thing I think of when I wake up. If I'm not writing every day, that stops. My brain's subconscious stops chewing on it.
That is very, very true.
Yeah. We're going a bit long here. I wanted to talk about your books a little bit, but I think you kind of touched on that. it's about this same thing. It's about just getting things done and keeping this machine going. But is there anything else that you'd want to share before we wrap up here?
Two things real quick. I do have a box set of my 3 novels. It's The Gotcha Detective Agency, written by Jamie Lee Scott. And right now the 3 novels are Let Us Pray, Prey, Textual Relations, and Death of a Sales Rep. The next book will be coming out in February, and it's called What a Meth. And anyway, that's the mystery series that I'm writing. And I'm actually adapting that series for a TV show.
Oh, very cool.
So we'll see what happens there. And I would like you to log on to www.nooeknowsfilm.com. It's a short film that I wrote that was produced earlier it's hitting the 2013 film festivals, but it was produced in 2012. And we have the trailer on there right now. So if anybody wants to go on and see the trailer.
Yep. Very cool. And so do go to TV Writer Chat this Sunday night and go to tvwriterchat.com and find out about the pilot program. And if you haven't got a new pilot going or haven't got a plan, why not? Boy, add another one. Even if you have 2 pilots, you need 3. You need 4. There's always a need for more pilots. And I've known writers. I know of writers who did a pilot as a writing sample. It didn't sell. They got a job on a TV series. And then after that, they dug that pilot out and it sold.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What show is it who lost a lot of their writers this year? Oh my gosh, I'm trying to think. And it was, Homeland, because several of their writers got their own shows. The Bridge is going to be airing next year. And so several of them sold pilots while they were writing on another show. So, it never stops. You just keep going keep going and keep going. But the more samples you have, and even if you don't go back and rewrite one sample, or one pilot, it's good practice. You keep doing it. The first time you get out on the tennis court, you don't play well. The more you do it, the better you get. And another thing another podcast I'd kind of like to promote is, have you ever seen Grammar Girl?
No. I've heard of it. I've never actually.
If you want to brush up on your college grammar, high school grammar, she's fun. It's interesting. And the one thing I do notice more with screenwriters than I do with novelists is the proper grammar. So, Grammar Girl might not be a bad podcast to listen to.
And there's nothing wrong with getting somebody to look at your grammar. I know great writers with bad spelling. Like, great writers, and they know they have bad spelling, so they get somebody to edit their work. Nothing wrong with that. But if you have the capacity to improve your spelling and grammar, always a good idea.
And always this is another thing. Always have someone else look at your work, because you can read your script 300 times. You can put a ruler under each line, and as you go through it, and you will miss something. Yeah. Always have someone with fresh eyes read your work.
Yeah, very cool. Well, this has been awesome. It's been pretty long, but I think people will get a lot out of this. And for everything else, of course, you can get us on the chats Sunday nights. I missed a few in 2012, but I'm going to be there every week for 2013. Hell or high water. So you can get us there, TV Writer Chat, on Sunday nights. So thanks so much, Jamie, for taking part in this. And who knows, maybe we'll have you as part 4th time on the podcast sometime soon.
Yeah, that'll be when I sell my pilot.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Gray. Have a good day.
Okay. Bye-bye. Hosted by Gray Jones, the TV Writer Podcast is brought to you by Script Magazine and ScriptMag.com, the leading source for script writing information in print and on the web.